Hi, I'm Gemma and this is a chat with Gemma. So, been going through a lot lately of emotion. Don't like emotion. Try to avoid it as much as I can. But as I've talked about before, my dad had a health scare and he had to go to hospital for a whole week, which is a lot nowadays because they try to get you out of there as fast as they can, even if it's into aftercare or whatever. And I had to go to his house. He's been living alone since Mum died, and he's of great age. Not my idea, the family's idea, but house that used to be full of kids and all of that. And I went there yesterday. I thought, as I drove up, I just thought, I'm going to have a heart attack or something. I didn't. It was, it was like, I don't know, very strong emotion. And I just went before because I had to collect some medicine just before now, about an hour ago. And toot, off I go, and then I start to drive in and onto the dad's property, and again I just like I thought, I'm going to have a heart attack or something. I'm going to just, or a panic attack. And I thought, I hate this. And the house is so empty, and there's Dad's food there and his stuff there and his, his chair and his TV. It's all still there. But it's unlikely he's ever going to enter that house again. And so I was like, it's a grieving. It's a terrible grieving. But it brought me back to when I was in my 20s. So as I've said before, I'm 70 now, so it's a long time ago. But I was living alone in a flat and had a lot of, without going into it all, had quite a stressful life. And I was working hard and getting tired and all of that. And I had what's either, a near nervous breakdown or an actual nervous breakdown. But one of my experiences was some of these panic attacks. So I'd have anxiety attacks, which are sort of different to panic attacks, but I suppose for some people it's all comes under the same umbrella. But it can be mixed in with, with a grieving and with depression. So when you're depressed, often you are grieving something. And I had got to a point in my life where I could see, I wasn't finding Mr. Right, and I could just sort of see my life drifting off, like one of those paths in a picture, all alone forever. Turns out it was true. But I haven't been alone. I have lived with people at a few different times along that journey, but yeah, basically it was true. And it was just like, I don't know, if you haven't been through it, it's hard to describe it, but if you have been through it, first of all, I'm very sorry if you have. It's much better if you haven't. You kind of have to have been through it to understand perhaps what I'm talking about. But it's just like, almost like if you can imagine one of those boxes bags, those sandbag things that they practice their punching on. And they're big and long and heavy, and imagine somebody big and strong just slammed it into your chest and your torso. It's not quite like that, but it's like the emotion kind of hits you in the chest and the torso like that. And so I thought I'd talk about this because certainly at that point in time, that would have been back in the 70s, getting towards, 1980-ish, round that time. And I had no idea about things like anxiety, depression, or any of those things really. I knew that there was such a thing as a nervous breakdown, but I didn't know what that was. Really we didn't know about stress or hyperventilating or palpitations or any of these things, all of which, it's like, at times it can be like, oh, am I breathing? Am I breathing? Can I breathe? It can be unbearable. It can be very, very hard to bear and quite overwhelming, scary, but most of all just unbearable, unpleasant, Probably shouldn't say unbearable because that's what the psychologists tell you not to say. But it feels unbearable to me, like I can't stand this, And you just want to run away from it. So I know with some people with depression, they want to go as far away from people as they could, but I wanted to go and be with people because I lived alone. And if I went to somebody's place and face-to-face with somebody and talked to somebody until this feeling went away, then I could just go home and quickly as I could go to bed, and I knew I'd sort of be all right. Tonight I didn't do that, but I did go to the supermarket. So, bright lights around me and people moving and all of that, and I'm okay. But I did want to talk about that feeling because it's something that I had many times when I was younger. And again, as I say, I just had no idea that other people might I thought I was the only one, like absolutely nobody else could know what this is like. So if you are young and you've gone through something like that, then please know you're not the only one, and it is good to talk to the right sort of people, because you'll find, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who have been through the same sort of thing, and I think it is a good idea to get with people if you're really bad and talk about it with them. Emotions, boy, they're just emotions, but they can be big, but they're transient, and you've got to try to convince yourself of that, remind yourself of that. They pass. I'm not saying they don't come back, and I'm not saying they don't repeat themselves. Learning some of those breathing techniques where you take a breath in and very slowly breathe it out, and do that 10 times. Things like that are beaut. So, get into some of those if you don't know about those now. But you can get through to the other side of this and have those normal emotions that you have. Be back to feeling ordinary, happy, laughing hard at something, that sort of thing. And if you know what I'm talking about, man, I give you my sympathy. I'm sure you give me your sympathy too. But you're really not on your own. I'm not saying if you're living alone, you're not on your own, or if you're in a prison that you're not alone. Obviously, physically, you are on your own. But God's watching, truthfully. I know he's pretty quiet. It's pretty annoying. But he's watching, and in that way you're not alone. But I know you can't see him and touch him and talk and hear him speak back, and that's hard. It's a hard thing in life. But you're not the only one. Other people understand. Now, just finish with a little story, because it's kind of a time when people can take their lives. As I say, emotions can be unbearable, big, overwhelming. It's good to get sleep, by the way. Make sure you get... and if you're not sleeping and you're panicking, so that you wake up at night, because I used to get an acidic stomach and all of that, it's okay, you won't die from that. But you can rest in other ways. So if you want to get out of bed and just watch something very tame on television, or read something like a children's book, something very tame, don't be worried that you're out of bed, because you're still resting, and you're resting in a better way than trying to sleep and tossing and turning with maybe a nauseous or burning stomach. But anyway, I want to tell this story about my cousin. I might have told this story before, I'm not sure, but he took big, tall, 6'3", the most handsome man I've ever seen in my life, and a really lovely character with it. Now, he took his life at 38. Now, his father left the family when he was still a child. So it was just his mum, and he had two older brothers that were sort of a bit, more capable, of an age where they were more capable of dealing with it, but still very traumatic for and upsetting for all of them. And so there's a feeling of abandonment to start with. But he, had great honour for my aunt, and, great admiration for her being the glue that kept the family together. But go forward to his work life, and he had a living girlfriend for a while, and there was a crash, and so this affected his particular job. So he was really out of money, and he was kind of in a bad way. They had just bought a house in a fairly expensive area, probably thinking their wages would, cover it and all of that. Then his apprentice, now he'd also had a serious back injury. His apprentice, who was going to be sort of his back, suddenly up and left after his training him, and now he was going to do a lot of the physical stuff for him. And then his secretary left him, and of course the crash made him stressful and on edge, and his girlfriend left him. Then we have a thing in Australia used to be called the Queen's birthday. I don't know why we celebrate that in Australia. Now it's the King's birthday. I won't say what I think about that. Anyway, so nearly all of our public holidays are on a Monday. So he had Saturday, Sunday on his own, and then the Monday. And he took his life on the Queen's birthday. And I think he might have gone through something like what I would occasionally go through, and went into a panic, all too much. How am I going to get out of this? It's impossible. And just panicked. Please don't do that. I'm not suggesting that you're going to, but for anybody who might now or in the future think of that, that was so upsetting for his mother. They had such a close relationship. You don't know how much people love you until after something like that, and then it's too late. And it doesn't solve anything. You're still in pain, because you might not know this, but you don't die. Yes, your body dies, but our spirits, they don't die. And that thing that makes, the thing that's your innermost being, the thing that makes you who you are, it's still existing. Now, do I believe that suicides go to hell? No, not necessarily. That might happen sometimes. But there was a book called Return from Tomorrow, and a young 19-year-old had an after-death experience, and he was taken by Jesus around to see different things, different realms that were going on. One of the things he saw were people saying sorry to living people who couldn't see them, and saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And he said, what's going on, kind of thing. And Jesus said, they are suicides chained to every consequence of their act. Now, do I think all suicides go through that? No, I don't, because I believe Jesus' blood covers the sin of suicide like it covers all sins. But there are some people who do go through that punishment. Now, they weren't in hell, they weren't being licked by flames, but they had to go through this this sorrow of seeing what they'd done to others. So it's not just you're going to kill yourself and everything's finished and all your pain's over. It's not going to work that way. It's not going to do that for you. What you need to do is get with people and tell them truthfully how you're feeling. And if you're feeling suicidal, again, pick the right person. Tell them about that, the right person only, about that. And I have thought those sorts of thoughts many, many times myself. But because I read this book and I know it's not a solution and can make things actually worse for you. You don't have a body anymore, so you're not going to have a physical pain. But as we've just talked about, emotional pain can be very great. Trying to talk to somebody that you love and tell them you love them and you're still here, and not being able to get through to them because they can't see or hear you, that's pretty scary. So please don't ever consider taking your life. Emotions, yes, they can be unbearable, but they pass. You get through to the other side. And yes, as I say, they can come back again, as I say. But then you're going to go through again, and you can get back to listening to one of your favourite comedians or whatever. I recommend Jim Gaffigan and Nate Bargatze. I'm not getting any money for advertising these people, but I've laughed really hard at them. To my, even when I'm here alone. So, yeah, you can still laugh hard, even though you've been in the midst of this really unbearable emotion. You can get back to that point of being quite ordinary and yourself again. But I do give you my sympathy. And we have to sort of get together and be each other's support, us humans. And I give you a cyber hug. You know what that is? I'll give you a big hug if you're going through anything like that, because I do know. All right, God bless you. And I wish you healing and peace of mind. Bye for now.